All right, guys. So, although I am up here doing the lesson, I really am just presenting on behalf of my wonderful husband, Jose, who wrote this lesson, because he is sick today. So he's probably on the live stream. Hi, baby. I hope you feel better. But before we get started, does anyone here like stickers? I have cute little animal stickers. I have some Dr. Seuss stickers, and I have some Sesame Street stickers that say things like slam dunk or shine bright. So, who here has something to take notes with? Does anybody have like a notebook? A notebook to take notes? Anybody have a physical one? No physical ones? Okay, well, who has their notes app out? Who has their notes app out? All right. If you have your notes app out, I will give you your choice of sticker. All right. So if you have your notes app, I'm gonna pass these around, and then if you don't have your notes app, then it's a good reason to get your notes app out and take a sticker. Send you a picture? Not today. But I just want to encourage us to be able to have the habit of bringing a notebook. I know for me, like, I have my notes app, but I don't always look back at it, like it just kind of gets tossed into the ether. And then maybe if I remember it and intentionally go back, I'll look at it. But I want us to be in the habit of taking notes. I really appreciate the work that Jose puts into making these lessons go together, the hours he spends reading, the hours he spends doing research and trying to put these together. And I hope you guys are able to appreciate it. And the time that he's put in is to help you guys with your walks. And so I hope that by taking notes, you'll be able to not just take it today and then forget it tomorrow, but hopefully it'll help you remember it as you keep going. And so today we are continuing our With series, and we are going to do life from God. And actually I won't tell you the big idea yet. You'll have to figure that out. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of recap. What do we remember about the postures that we already have covered? So if you could tell me one sentence or less, life under God. What is the posture of life under God? What is that like? John V.
It's basically like the sort of definition that they gave living under God sees the world governed by the undertaking the will of God and please the peace and the peace that will live for that and kind of translation.
Okay.
Good things will happen.
Long sentence, but okay, if I could condense down, I hear uncontrollable will of God. We're trying to appease that uncontrollable will in hopes, and it's more transactional. Any other things under what under life under God is? See, this is where notes are handy. John V used his notes. Josh.
I was devoted to you, God. You owe me blessings.
Okay, I was devoted to you. You owe me blessings. Okay, cool. So life under God. It seeks to use God by using obedience and religious rituals to control God, obligating him to act as we wish he would. It's also very fear motivated. So he sees the world governed by the unpredictable will of God. What about life over God? Life over God. What is life over God? Gina?
Places natural laws at the center of the world.
Natural laws at the center of the world. Okay. And Tony?
I guess kind of like the opposite of under God, of like our will.
Our will.
We can will things into will our success or will our whatever we want, whatever we desire.
We will things. Okay. All right. Let's see. Life of God. Life of God prioritizes principles and natural laws over a relationship with God. It sees religion primarily as a means to betterment rather than a means to draw near to the divine. And over here, the skinny of it, places immutable natural laws at the center of the world. Cool. And so today we're going to focus on life from God. And I want you guys to turn over to Joshua 24, 14 through 15, or write it down. And can I have a volunteer read this scripture? JP, Joshua 24, 14 through 15.
It says, Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord.
Okay. So we're not going to go too much into this right now, but this scripture really exemplifies that there's a choice of whether serving God is desirable. And I wanted to start off, because I'm going to start off this with a question. So I want a couple of answers from you guys before we get into this. But what do you think Jesus is like? What do you think Jesus is like? Just a couple of, and I'm going to give you 1 minute. You can write down a couple of words, like 3 to 5 words, or a sentence that describes what Jesus is like. But yeah, I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to a minute. Think about, what do you think Jesus is like? All right? What do you think Jesus is like? And write that down. What do you think Jesus is like?
Not based off the scripture.
Not based off of the scripture. Just your personal opinion or your personal thought. All right, I'll give you guys 10 more seconds. Okay. What are some words or phrases that came to mind? Shane? Serving. Oh, a servant. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Eddie? Gentle. JP? Relatable. Oh, Ricky, and then Tony. Loving. Strong. Josh? Powerful. David Sparks? Selfless. Matthew? Jealous. And then Shane? Gracious. Okay, we'll stop right there. So, kind of an explanation of why I asked you that question. So, every semester, Professor Scott McKnight, he's a professor of religious studies at North Park College in Chicago, he gives his students a test on the first day of his Jesus class. And the test begins with a series of questions about what the students think Jesus is like. Is he moody? Does he get nervous? Is he the life of the party or an introvert? The 24 questions are then followed by a second set with slightly altered language, in which the students answer questions about their own personalities. McKnight is not the only one who has administered this exam. It has been field tested by other professionals as well, but the results are remarkably consistent. Everyone thinks Jesus is just like them, McKnight added. The test results also suggest that even though we like to think we are becoming more like Jesus, the reverse is probably more the case. We try to make Jesus like ourselves. McKnight's personality questionnaire confirms what the French philosopher Voltaire said 3 centuries ago. If God made us in his image, we have returned him the favor. So once we understand our human tendency to give God a makeover in our own image, then asking a person, what is God like, can kind of be like a religious Rorschach test. You familiar with this? The thing like, oh, butterfly, whatever, word association and stuff. So this question is kind of like a Rorschach test because we tend to project our own identities onto God. We assign him our personalities, our values, and our biases. We've seen this in the 2 postures already explored. Life under God views him as a capricious deity who must be appeased in order to garner blessings and avoid punishment. And the life over God posture imagines him to be the opposite, a rational and predictable calculation, a watchmaker whose laws and principles govern the world in his place. But the contemporary Western world is not primarily driven by ancient superstition or natural science. We live in an age driven by the economics of conspicuous consumption. To paraphrase Madonna, we live in a material world, and we are material girls. I'm a material girl. So when we look at the God, inkblot, or Rorschach test, most contemporary people, contemporary meaning like today's people, project their own consumer values and identities onto the divine. Christian Smith, he's a sociologist from the University of North Carolina, and he spent years studying the religious lives of teenagers. He concluded that most view God as a combination of a divine butler and cosmic therapist. God exists to help them through their problems and achieve what they desire. Smith said that those holding this view of God are primarily concerned with one's own happiness, in contrast to focusing on glorifying God, learning obedience, and serving others. It's a cool stuff. Cool quote. So this is the essence of the life from God posture, that God exists to supply what we need or desire. And although we may want to be a bit dismissive of this posture, I think it's easy for us to think, it's not really me, like I don't expect everything from God. There is some merit to this view. Scripture reminds us repeatedly that all we have comes from God, right? Everything that lives draws its life from God, and He is the Father of lights, from whom comes every good gift and every perfect gift. And Jesus calls us to ask God for what we need. But the life from God posture has a tendency to overemphasize this single aspect of the divine-human relationship. It makes receiving God's gifts the entirety of our religious lives, and this is where the posture begins to break down. So, what is the essence of the life from God posture? What is the essence of the life from God posture? Josh.
God exists to support me, to help me live my life, right?
Yeah, God exists to supply what we need or desire.
I didn't want to read it straight off.
No, yeah. Engagement test, seeing if you're paying attention. Don't be afraid to read off. I'm giving you the information, just making sure you're seeing it, you're hearing it. So the essence of life from God posture is that God exists to supply what we need or desire. So an obvious extreme of this that we may see in our lives or in our world is the prosperity gospel. It's also known as the health wealth gospel or the name it and claim it gospel. This extreme posture of Christianity innocently or blatantly believes in using God for personal happiness, acquiring nice things, and avoiding suffering. Let's turn over to Luke 17, verses 11 through 19. Luke 17, 11 through 19. And then, can I have someone read this? I'll have Ricky go this time. I'll get you next time, bro. All right.
Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between
Samaria
and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met, they stood at a distance and called in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, Go, show yourself to the priest. And they went. They were cleansed. One of them, when he saw, he was healed. Came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and begged, and he was dismayed. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God, except this foreigner? Then he said to him, Rise and go. Your faith has made you well.
Okay. Why didn't the other 9 come back? I'm going to pick someone other than Ricky. Why didn't the other 9 come back? Why do you think? Let me see. Anyone? I'll go with Tony. Go ahead, Tony.
Their problem is fixed. That's it.
Their problem is
they can
fixed.
carry on with their lives now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need for, sure, Jesus was the one who healed them, but whatever, that's fine. Like they're good now. Like they have bigger things that they can move on to now. That they're not with this leprosy.
They got what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got what they wanted from God. So the life from God posture is so appealing because it doesn't ask us to change. What we desire, what we seek, what we do, and how we live, which often are all shaped by consumerism, they're not disrupted by this posture. Our values and way of life are simply projected onto God and incorporated into a religious system in which we receive divine assistance to meet our desires. In this way, life from God is nothing more than consumerism with a Jesus sticker slapped on the bumper. Oop, forgot to that. There you go. Yeah, it doesn't ask us to change and believing we can have it our way. Life over God says that at the core of the universe, life over God says that the core of the universe stands a set of immutable natural laws or principles. And then the more ancient life under God posture believes the God's capricious will is at the core. So what does the life from God posture place at the core of the universe? Anyone want to take a stab at it? Anybody want to take a stab? Tim?
Oneself.
Yep. You peel away all those layers. At the center, you find yourself. Nice. Consumerism. Consumerism is a supremely narcissistic worldview in which everything's value is determined by its usefulness to me or to oneself. I stand at the center while everything and everyone orbits around me. This gives rise to utilitarian ethics. Anybody know what that means? Utilitarian ethics? John V.
Utilitarianism is the ethics code of getting the most possible happiness. So doing anything to ensure the most possible happiness.
Okay, doing anything to ensure the most possible happiness. Yeah, it's the belief that actions are right if they are useful or for the benefit of a majority. And sometimes you're considering yourself the majority. Consumerism leads to this ethics where you believe the right thing is whatever is going to benefit the majority or even oneself. So you think about the way we shop. Little, if any, thought is given to the story behind a product, the people who made it, or the lives it affects. We act as if the item appeared magically on the shelf, simply for our use. And when it's no longer useful, we're justified in throwing it away and buying a new one. This same utilitarian mindset can be applied to people. When a marriage is no longer satisfying my desires, I can end it and try a new one. When a church community is no longer meeting my needs, I'll attend a different one. And the fact that there are more men, women, and children in slavery today than at any other time in history, approximately 27 million, shows the tragic impact of this self-centered mindset on the most vulnerable. Horrors like slavery, sex trafficking, abortion, euthanasia, and genocide are only possible when people are seen as commodities, measured by their usefulness and not by their inherent worth. In the life from God posture, God also carries no inherent value. Like everything else in the consumer worldview, God's value is determined by his usefulness. He orbits around us. What have you done for me lately? Could be the mantra of the life from God posture. Religion is a means to an end, a more spiritual method of achieving our desires, whether they are the products of advertising or of nobler sources. Those who relate to God primarily as the almighty provider hold a decidedly one-dimensional understanding of him. God gives and we receive. If we Just kidding. Sorry. If we maintain this one-dimensional view, even when we ask for noble or charitable things, this posture still seeks to use God to achieve our dreams. We're expecting God to orbit around us. We're insisting that the creator submit to the creature. We are seeking to control God in order to achieve our objectives. And so I have a question for you guys. When you pray, how much do you find yourself mostly asking for things versus praising God for who he is? So when you pray, how much do you find yourself mostly asking for things versus praising God for who he is? And we'll kind of discuss that more during our discussion questions, but just for you to start thinking about now. So going back to the idea of consumerism, it's the fuel of life from God. While self-interest are the destination, consumerism acts as the exchanged currency of fuel. So we saw fear, brought up previously, as the main motivator for life under God, right? Fear is the main motivator. And then rather than removing our fears and pains, consumerism tries to distract us from them. So commodified goods and experiences are used to keep us amused, anesthetize us from the unpleasant realities of our existence. Think about how much social media is constantly trying to push ads at you, things to buy, things to do, to distract from when you're feeling sad. How many more, here, look at some more kitty videos. It'll make you feel better. But it's to help anesthetize us, so that we're being amused, which amusement literally means to not think, to be distracted. Distraction, however, is not the same as deliverance. What's deliverance? Who knows what deliverance is? To be saved. So distraction is not the same as being saved. You're not fixing the problem, right? So going back to the story from earlier, does anyone here know what leprosy is and why it's dangerous? So what is leprosy? Why is it dangerous? Anybody besides Tony before I go to him? Matthew?
I don't know exactly what it is, like the pathology, but it's a disease where like your skin or your body deteriorates, and it's also spreadable.
Skin condition, contagious. There's decay. Okay, yeah. What did you say about the skin?
Your skin deteriorates.
Skin deteriorates. Well, okay. Tim, did you have anything to add to that?
I was just gonna say some sort of skin disease or something.
Yes, skin condition. It's highly infectious. So what leprosy does, I used to think like, oh, your body's just decaying. That's the skin thing. Your body just starts decaying, and then you lose limbs and stuff. But what leprosy does is it destroys nerve endings in the body, and lepers lose their ability to feel. And so I don't know if you guys heard of that. I think it's Novocaine, that new movie with Jack Quaid that's coming out, where he's like, he doesn't have feeling and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, that's so cool. That means he can be super like, but it may sound like a blessing, right? But it's ultimately a lethal curse, because without pain, lepers are unaware when they've been injured. And as a result, even a tiny wound or a splinter can be left untreated and become infected, leading to the loss of limbs or even death. So that's what makes it dangerous, is the fact that you can't tell when you've been hurt and when you need treatment for things. And so when taken too far, like how does this relate to our spirituality? The pursuit of comfort and the avoidance of pain can make us into spiritual lepers. We become incapable of experiencing the aches God uses to awaken us to the reality of sin and evil in the world and in ourselves. So I wanted to ask you guys, what are some uncomfortable but necessary feelings we often avoid or distract ourselves from? What are some uncomfortable but necessary feelings we often avoid or distract ourselves from? Let me see. No, not yet. What are some uncomfortable but necessary feelings we often avoid or distract ourselves from? Melissa? Mommy? Grief? Grief. Okay. Hazel? Loneliness. Isidro? Anxiety. Eddie? Guilt. Guilt times 2. Sam? Stress. Tony? One more time. Grudges. Okay. So maybe like anger. Bitterness. Did you have another one? Fear. Yeah. Guilt, shame, fear, anxiety, stress, disappointment. I know personally for me, rejection is a huge one that I like to avoid. These are all feelings that they are necessary though in our lives, but they're uncomfortable to feel. We want to be distracted. And Dr. Brand, He's a physician who spent much of his time with lepers in India. He's quoted as saying, "Most people view pain as an enemy, yet without it, heart attacks, strokes, ruptured appendixes, and stomach ulcers would all occur without any warning. Who would ever visit a doctor apart from pain's warnings? How many of you go to the doctor regularly if you don't have something wrong with you? We don't. But when we feel pain, we feel those things, that's what gets us to go get the help we need, right? So right now, do you feel like you find yourself spiritually and emotionally sensitive, or are you spiritually numb? Are there feelings or experiences you're avoiding? And you'll be able to discuss that more in your discussion groups, but just for you to start thinking about now, are you spiritually and emotionally sensitive, or are you spiritually numb? Are there feelings or experiences you're avoiding? Life from God cuts off the redemptive purpose of pain and fear and feelings like that. In our comfort, we forget the one who alone can deliver us from our true ailment. Instead, we seek lesser things, we settle. This is evident all the way back in the Old Testament with the Israelites. It's not a new problem. Their hearts were set more on God's gifts than on God himself. Even as he led them to freedom in a good and fruitful land, the Lord repeatedly cautioned them not to forget him once they were comfortable. And we're going to turn over to Deuteronomy 6, 11 through 14. I'm going to have my brother Matthew read this one. But Deuteronomy 6, 11 through 14. Go ahead.
Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commands, his laws, and his decrees that I have given you to this day. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, when you build fine houses and settle down, when your heads and flocks grow large and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your Lord will become proud. Well, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery.
Yeah. Haggai 1, verses 2 through 9. We're not going to read it, but maybe you could write it down for later. Haggai 1, 2 through 9. This is another time where the Israelites have gotten comfortable. They've been building back their own homes and stuff, but they've been neglecting God's temple. And God calls them out on it. He's like, you got all your blessings and the things that you need, but you're not paying attention to my will and what I have in store. The Israelites would struggle with the temptation to worship gods or idols of other nations, not because they saw evidence of these gods to be more powerful, but because they had promises of greater comfort and pleasures. According to the Bible, an idolater is anyone who exalts a created thing to the place reserved for the Creator alone. We are called to love the Lord our God with all our hearts. But when some lesser thing or things take possession of our hearts, we have fallen into idolatry. And I must note that these lesser things are rarely altogether bad. Tim Keller, in his book Counterfeit Gods, defined idols as good things turned into ultimate things. Good things turned into ultimate things. That's what idols can be. God has blessed us with many wonderful things in this world. But when these, rather than him, become the focus of our desire, we've fallen into the life from God posture. And Jesus confronts this tendency numerous times, namely within Luke 14 and Matthew 10, when referring to our contending love for our family in him. He does this also with wealth, righteousness, and health, good things we can enjoy. However, we can turn them into ultimate things. So when you think about what are the things in your life that maybe are good things that you've turned into ultimate things. But when we fixate on what we can attain from God, we fail to experience the peace of his presence in our lives. Dr. Jean Twenge and her colleagues in the psychology department at San Diego State University analyzed mental health records collected between 1938 and 2007 from more than 63,000 young adults. What they uncovered was a dramatic upturn in psychological problems since the 1930s, most notably depression. ABC News reported that the researchers found that students today feel much more isolated, misunderstood, and emotionally sensitive or unstable than in previous decades. In addition, teens today are more likely to be narcissistic, have poor self-control, and say that they're worried, sad, and dissatisfied with life. Sound familiar? Relatable maybe at all? But Twenge and her team concluded that consumerism is a major reason for the rise in mental illness. We have become, this is her quote, we have become a culture that focuses on material things, she said, and less on relationships. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what is the danger of a church community whose leadership and congregation are set in this posture? What is the danger of a church community whose leadership and congregation are set in this posture? And we'll kind of put it into two different groups. So what happens if a leadership is led by from God posture? What do you think happens with leadership? How are they going to lead differently?
Well, if everybody's on this idea that, well, I want what's best for me, that now you're leading a bunch of other people who have money, and now it's like, well, how do I expand the church, but it also benefits me?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a leader who is, well, probably going to toe that line of like, well, now I can take from the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can benefit myself with this money that's supposed to be for the church, but now I can benefit it for myself.
Yeah, so you have leaders who no longer just see people as people, but or people of God, but as an opportunity to benefit themselves too, and possibly even take advantage of the church. Okay, Josh.
I guess this is similar to what Tony was saying, but you end up with people in leadership that are there, but not for the right reasons. They're not there. They might pretend that they're there. They might use words like serving and things like that, but it's really because this is where all of my best business contacts are, or the people I want to rub elbows with this group of people because they're going to help me get ahead.
Yeah, leaders who are there for the wrong reasons. Yeah. I think. Let's see. I was going to show you, but I'll just tell you and then we'll come back to it later. So we definitely have this idea that leaders see congregants as a means to an end, butts to fill the pews and weekly donors to fill their pockets rather than souls to be shepherded, right? Also, I think it leads to the sole purpose is to keep people happy, right? Their focus is on the promises of God, but they can compromise on educating, correcting, and rebuking in the issues related to suffering and discipleship. They won't care enough to have uncomfortable conversations because that leads to those uncomfortable feelings we talked about earlier. That's not what I want. So we have leadership that wants to keep people happy, not going to confront people, and the congregants to the leadership are seen more as something they get to benefit from. What about for the congregants? What about the rest of the church overall? What happens if they have this posture? How's the community going to look like? What's it going to look like? Melissa.
I imagine that if the church makes mistakes or leadership or they're not liking what's going on, we search for other places.
Yeah.
Or if they feel uncomfortable.
They'll leave if they feel uncomfortable or if confronted or if there's, if they have an issue or something, they're more likely to just leave. Okay. Tim?
Basically, same as you said, but weak and shallow.
Weak and shallow. Okay. Eddie?
I was thinking more like kind of stepping over each other.
Stepping over each other. Okay. What do you think stepping over each other looks like?
More like I'm trying to. It's for me, like I'm trying to grab what I desire, but the same person can just step over my needs because he wants to be better.
So just kind of using each other, stepping on top of each other, get what you want. Okay. Tony?
Less of a community, more of just a group of people.
Less of a community, more just like a social group of people. Yeah. Okay. Josh?
I think people, when they don't get blessed, sometimes they're made to feel like, oh, you must not have very strong faith or you have to sacrifice. Like they're made to feel like if you aren't getting the blessings, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah, if you're not getting the blessings, other people may think there's something wrong with you, or maybe you even think there's something wrong with you. Ricky?
I think the whole church will kind of feel like they're screwing through.
Why is that? Why would it feel like the story of Job?
It's like, say everyone here wants to have their blessing over everyone else. Say that, let's see, Angel here gets a blessing that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And now my mindset is like, I've been praying for that more than he has, but he got me fine.
So jealousy and envy and stuff? Okay. Anyone else? Hazel?
I think of like Jesus' heart posture in the Gospels where it's very much like to become a leader, you have to be a servant first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the congregation, they would, instead of like serving their community, their congregation, they would serve themselves.
Yeah, instead of serving the community, they're serving themselves. Okay, cool. Now you can take your picture. So for congregants, church becomes a pleasantry rather than a spiritual necessity. It's a place to receive rather than give, right? Because what is church supposed to be? It's a place that we're supposed to give praise. It's a place for us to be able to serve others spiritually. It's a place for us to meet the lost and help them connect with God. But if it's from God, then it's about what am I getting when I come to church, that I get to feel good, or I get to have people come and talk to me and give me attention, or whatever that is. Like, that's not the only purpose of church, to get our needs met. It's also for us to help meet other needs and to ultimately to praise God. It's a worship service. Worship is for God. And so church becomes a pleasantry rather than a spiritual necessity, a place for us to receive rather than give. Relationships with one another are only necessary as they are comfortable and convenient. I think I agree with you guys. Like, you start using other people's for your benefit, but also you're only interested in hanging out with others if you're going to get something out of it, or you only hang out when it's convenient instead of making time for relationships, and you end up feeling lonely and distant, right? If everyone is only going to hang out when it's convenient, you're pretty much never going to hang out. That's the point of relationship. Jose and I have been telling people lately, like, this thing that we heard of, like, the cost of community is inconvenience. It is annoyance. It isn't convenient to have relationships. But if you're expecting everyone to just come to you or to give, then you're going to end up lonely and feeling distant from everyone. And then as far as serving, volunteering, it's not going to come from a motivation of love, but with the expectation that it'll benefit you in some way. Like, maybe it's the treasures in heaven, or maybe it is the notoriety, or feeling like other people see you a certain way. And then your faith becomes dependent on circumstances, like Josh was saying. Like, if you don't get the blessings, then how are you going to feel about God? So instead of your faith being dependent on your relationship with God, it's dependent on circumstances. And then it can also leave you spiritually numb or insensitive to sin or toxic culture. You become insensitive, remember, like the leprosy. All right. Whew. So we don't want that kind of community, right? That's not what we hope for. A parallel phenomenon has happened in religious communities as we focus less energy on fostering a genuine relationship with God and others, and instead focus more energy on acquiring his blessings. This may explain why we have more religious resources, books, radio and television stations, ministries and schools than ever before, and yet more people are leaving the church. Maybe they've discovered that what they really wanted from God can be achieved just as easily without him. Or perhaps they've gotten what they can from him and have left home for a metaphorical distant country. In Luke 15, 11 through 24, Luke 15, 11 through 24, I'm going to turn over there. This is going to be a multiple page one, so I'm going to have, can I have 4 people who have not read yet? Shane 1, Mina 2, Gina 3rd. Who's going to be my 4th reader? Hazel. All right, cool. All right, so Shane, go ahead. And then I'll 1 through wherever that says. Yeah, if you want to just read off here.
Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of your estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had. He set off for a distant country and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need.
So he went and hired himself out as a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to eat pigs. He longed to taste of the food, the pods of the foods for eating, but no one gave him.
When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you.
I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants,
Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, so they began to celebrate.
All right, cool. So the bankruptcy of the life from God posture is also evident in the story Jesus told his dinner companions here in Luke. Eventually, the self-obsessed son became penniless and took a job feeding pigs. He went from comped martinis at the high rollers table at the Bellagio to cleaning buffet trays at the Nickel Floor Emporium. In his broken state, the son developed a new plan. He would return home, apologize to his father, and realizing he had forfeited any rights he once possessed as an heir, he would ask his father for a job as a servant. But had the jerk really changed? Had he really learned to value his father? Or was he once again hoping to use his father to improve his circumstances? Does he want his father, or just a chance for employment away from the pigs? Whether devotion or desperation motivated the son, it ultimately did not matter. Jesus said that when the father saw his son still a long way off, he ran and embraced him. The joy of having his son back overshadowed everything else. And before his son finished his apology or finished asking for a job, the father already had ordered a feast prepared to celebrate his son's return. When we look at God, we may see a reflection of our consumer selves, a divine vending machine to dispense our desires. But when God looks at us, he sees his child, created in his image, who is holy and dearly loved. We must be wary of the pitfall of life from God, which, like life under God, seeks to worship him only as a means to use him. In Matthew 13:44 through 46, Jesus offers two parables of men who found a hidden treasure in a field, and in another, a pearl. Both sold all they had for this hidden treasure. The purpose of these treasure parables was not about gaining more worldly wealth, but finding and discovering God. So where is your treasure, church? Is it the things you're going to get out of God? Or is it God himself? And so I have some discussion questions for you guys. There's a lot of them, so you don't have to go over all of them. Maybe pick two, get into your discussion groups of 3, 4, however many you want to do. But pick two and think deep. Don't be shallow and weak, but dig deep. And I hope that you guys have some good conversations, and we'll come back in about 8 to 10 minutes. All right? Cool? Ready, set, go. Hey guys, just wanted to read the discussion questions to you guys real quick before we hop off, for you to be able to discuss amongst yourselves or whoever you're watching with, or even just for your own personal walk. But the first discussion question is, when you pray, how much do you find yourself mostly asking for things versus praising God for who he is? So when you pray, how much do you find yourself asking for things versus praising God for who he is? Question 2. Hold on, is this on? Yeah, it's on. What emotions do you find yourself avoiding, and how does it negatively affect your walk? What emotions do you find yourself avoiding, and how does it negatively affect your walk? Number 3. What blessings do you most hope God will give you, and how might those good desires become distractions? What blessings do you most hope God will give you, And how might those good desires become distractions? Question 4. How would your faith change if God gave you nothing but Himself? How would your faith change if God gave you nothing but Himself? Thinking about Job. Is God still worth praising even when we have nothing? 5. What does it look like to want God more than what He provides? What does it look like to want God more than what He provides? Hopefully you guys enjoy doing those discussion questions and talking with other people about them and thinking more about what it means to live from God and what do you hope to have instead. And then next week we'll be doing life for God, and then the following week we'll finally get to life with God, which is the posture we hope to have, a life with God. So thank you guys for coming today. I'm going to close the live stream down, and we'll post this later for all you guys to watch back. But for now, thanks for coming, and you guys have a good night. Bye.